You're watching Fugitive Red Eye, and welcome to another episode of Takeshi Tuesdays. Today we'll be talking about Dolls, the 2002 movie that Takeshi directed but did not star in. It is the third and final of his movies that he directed but did not appear in. It was released on September 5th, 2002, and runs for 114 minutes, or approximately an hour and 54 minutes. Dolls once again had a soundtrack done by Joe Hisaishi, and is a movie that is very focused on death. Without spoiling things, I will just say it is probably one of the most depressing movies I've ever seen. I think personally that Fireworks is a little bit more depressing, but Dolls is a close second. There was also actually an onstage adaptation of Dolls that was done by Kerry Cracknell in 2009 in Scotland. The movie itself follows three distinct stories that aren't entirely connected, but they are thematically similar, and there is some visual overlap between the three. The primary story is about a man who is talked into marrying someone who he doesn't love because his parents want him to get status with the company boss, who is the father of the woman he's supposed to marry. But the thing is, he loves someone else who he was originally going to marry, but his parents basically force him into jilting her and marrying the boss's daughter. However, on the day of his wedding with the boss's daughter, it's revealed that the woman he loved tried to kill herself because of the fact that he dumped her. Being destroyed by this, he calls off the wedding with his boss's daughter and rushes to the hospital to meet her. Unfortunately, because of the suicide attempt, the woman he loves has lost all of her memory and has become, in a sense, kind of a vegetable. She can walk, but she can't talk. She's essentially an infant in an adult's body at this point. Because he put her in this condition, he decides it's his responsibility to take care of her. She also constantly wanders off and almost hurts herself on multiple occasions towards the beginning of the film. So to help combat this, he ties a rope to her and then to himself, so the two are constantly bound together so she can't wander off and hurt herself. He also runs away with her, and they live out of his car and just kind of wander around homeless, foraging through the trash and stuff like that. That's the one story. That's about as much as I can say, really, without spoiling it too much. The second story is about an old Yakuza boss named Hiro. And the main reason I remember Hiro's name, and I didn't mention the other two, is because Hiro is probably my favorite character in the movie. I do like the couple. I think their story is ultimately the best story. Incidentally, the couple's names are Matsumoto and Sawako. Anyway, Hiro's story is a lost romance, essentially. He wants to go and revisit a park where a woman was waiting for him every day with a lunch for him because they loved each other, and she promised to meet him there, to come there every day until he came back to come get her. This was a few decades ago, so she's been going there for the longest time. He finds that she's still going there and decides to go meet up with her. It's a very sad story about love and just how strong it is. And I really like that story. Hiro is, like I said, Hiro is my favorite character in the movie. And his story, probably my second favorite of the stories. Again, the original, couple that are bound together is probably the best overall story, but I think Hiro is the most interesting character. Other than that, there is also the third story, which is about an obsessive fan by the name of Nuki, and Nuki is obsessed with this pop idol named Haruna. Now, Haruna was disfigured in an accident and doesn't want anyone to come see her, so Nuki blinds himself to be able to go and meet her. And that's about as much as I can say of his story without getting too spoilery, but that's also a really good story. All three of these stories are very melancholy tales that are filled with tragedy, and they like to give you false hope throughout them. Again, without spoiling it too much, it is a very depressing movie, and I absolutely love this movie. Again, a heavy theme with Dolls is death. As I said, Takeshi has been quoted as saying that the reason why Westerners and Japanese loathe the notion of death so much is beyond him, because he thinks that death is just a normal part of life, and that's what he's trying to show with this movie. That death isn't a negative thing, and it doesn't always happen in some epic fashion. It's kind of arbitrary. Because I won't go into anyone dying or anything like that, but any deaths in this movie are arbitrary and seem to come out of nowhere. It's not like this big thing that they build up for you to expect. It's just something that can happen to anybody at any time. And that's part of what makes it such a beautiful movie. And once again, the soundtrack by Joe Hisaishi obviously does help tremendously. I'd highly recommend checking out Dolls. It's a sad romance movie loaded with tragedy. But this has been Fugitive Red Eye, and I'll see you next time on Takeshi Tuesdays.
Subscribe to Fugitive Red Eye.